Hey guys, Jam here from Jam's Mini Mods, and in today's video I'm going to try make a new and improved Khârn the Betrayer. Now this is actually a commission for a local player, but I thought it'd be quite a fun project with the World Eaters coming out. Well, they should be out already by the time this video is released. And I mean, the usual Khârn the Betrayer model is really nice, but it's a little bit kind of dated, so I wanted something to maybe open him up a little bit more. Something that might be a mix of the current model and this version of the model that I'll show up here. Also a mix of some artworks I've seen. But yeah, let's get into it. As you can see here, the legs are stuck together. Now this is what I meant when I said the model's very closed off, everything's kind of cramped up. So my first thing I needed to do was slice these legs apart, but I needed to be quite gentle and precise with this so I don't wreck the legs. Now I tried sawing it in half with my little micro hobby saw thing. It managed to do most of the job, but it takes quite a lot of the model away. So I basically just gently cut around it with my hobby knife. Emphasis on gentle because this is quite a thick piece of plastic, so if you're really pressing down, there's a good chance you're gonna snap your blade or cut yourself or something like that, so you gotta be quite gentle with this part. But as you can see, I managed to get it split apart quite well. There's not a lot of damage there, to be honest. All I really need to do is clean it up and I'm good to go. I don't need to re-sculpt anything. Now the really iconic part of this model is the position of his arm and of course the really fancy axe that he has. And I wasn't 100% sure where I wanted to go with this, but I knew if I didn't change the position of the arm, it wouldn't really look that different because it's such a distinctive look. So I had to go in and slice off the little like shoulder nubby thing that's on Khârn's body where it connects to the rest of his arm. And as you can see, I was using my little saw to see if I can maybe preserve that bit to still attach to the arm later, but I decided, you know what, I don't really need it. I'm just going to try and do something completely different. So I just got my clippers out in the end and just snipped it off. Then all I did was I used my hobby knife to just flatten that area out. So just cutting pieces down using my blade backwards, just kind of scrape the plastic smooth for later when we put a new arm on there. Now obviously because we're trying to repose a very monopose model, it's going to take a lot of cleaning up, as you can probably see throughout this video. Now one of Khârn's feet are actually kind of attached to rocks and stuff like that, obviously to give him extra support when you glue it down. But we don't want these, so I'm going to slice and dice around here with my clippers and my hobby knife, kind of just to get the foot out from all these rocks. And once I manage to get most of the rocks away, I will do a bit more of a cleanup later on in the video, but next thing I wanted to do was cut the toe section away from the sole section, if that makes any sense, because like I said, we will be doing quite a bit of reposing with this. So I'm just going to use my hobby knife to kind of cut down that where the triangular bit meets, if that once again makes any sense, as you can see on the video. And that should be a nice easy little cut there. Now all I'm going to do is glue the sole bit to the actual foot. We're going to leave the toe section to later once I've actually got the model on the base, because then I kind of know which position it's going to go in. And another quick cleanup job I did was on that arm where we slice a little nubby off. Khârn's got that cabling that would usually plug into his like flesh, and obviously we're going to be rearranging that, so I'm just going to snip that wire off, but we are going to keep it to try and attach it to the new arm in the future. Now one of the next big cleanup steps we had to do was the two big chains with the skulls hanging from his groin. We need to get rid of those because they're getting in the way of the legs position that I wanted to do. Now this was fairly easy. I just took my hobby knife very gently, tried not to damage the model or the chains or anything like that, just sliding down each side and just working my way around until I got the chains free. And as you can see here, I got the upper torso basically where I wanted everything to be. The arms cleaned up, got the chains off, I got the backpack on, everything like that. Now because this model is really so monopose, it would take a lot of extra work if you want to rearrange the head and all the leg posing stuff like that, but you know, I'm still trying to keep him quite recognizable as Khârn the Betrayer, because he's a massive lore character and a lot of people love him, and he's quite a recognizable foe on the battlefield, so got to keep that look. Now I have to start on the really important bits, and that's positioning the legs. And obviously the most important one is the one that connects to the base, and that is his right leg. Now originally I kind of jumped the gun a little bit and I made some green stuff up and I tried to get his leg into a position that I want, but I found it didn't quite look right. So I got all the green stuff out of there and I started adding a bit more of a curve into his knee plate there, so the top kind of thigh bit of the leg can fit in there a bit better. So a mixture of using my hobby knife to kind of slowly carve out rounded chunks of plastic and a round tipped Dremel head, you know, just kind of grinding away in there, just so the leg can slide in there a little bit better. I also ended up cutting a little bit off the front kind of thigh bit there, once again, just so that knee bit and the thigh bit could get a little bit closer together so I can rearrange the position. It wasn't a massive change, but I definitely feel like it helped out a bit. Now I did basically the exact same kind of process for the left leg, but I wanted this leg facing forwards. Maybe he's kind of climbing up a pile of skulls, which you will be seeing in a bit later as well. I didn't want the leg going backwards because once again that's pretty much exactly the same as what the original model's leg is doing. So I needed it to go forwards. And I got this bit of blue tack underneath just so I can get it into the position that I wanted, so I could hold it there while I let the glue set. And while that's almost dry, I'm going to stick those two chainy skull things back onto his groin so we can get that into the position that we want. Luckily it fits pretty much bang on perfect back where it went before, so that's an easy job. But as you've probably been able to notice at this point, both legs now around the back of the knee have quite big gaps. The right leg, just a tiny little gap there where actually I just need to add some of that kind of rubber padding tubing. Only need one strip, so that should be fine. The left hand leg on the other hand, I pretty much have to resculpt the whole back of the leg and plus fill in that like rubber body suit kind of thing as well. So I make up my green stuff, just 50-50 between the yellow and blue, mix it up all nice. Making sure my table, my hands, my surface, everything, my tools are nice and damp and wet so nothing gets stuck together with the green stuff. I roll out really nice thin sausages, as I always do in these videos. Now you can use a toothpick or something to help you kind of pick the green stuff and work with it. I really like these silicone color shapes, I believe they're called. The one I'm currently using in this video right now I don't really like. It's not my favorite one, but I couldn't find my favorite. I have now after the video, but any of these are quite good to have around. And I basically just gently get it into that gap there where I needed to kind of just replicate once again that inner like body glove kind of thing. So yeah, that one's pretty simple. Just remember, if you ever get any like tool marks or anything like that you don't like, just get a wet paintbrush to smooth out your green stuff. So that should work nicely. Now before I begin the similar kind of process on the left leg, I wanted to get a bit more strength in there because the bond there wasn't too great and the gap was quite big. So I cut up a bit of sprue and kind of just wedged it in there with lots of plastic glue to kind of meld it all together just to get extra bit of strength. Obviously green stuff will help as well, but because this is a commission, you know, I want that extra bit of strength in there. Once again, because this is quite a big gap, first thing I want to do is get a little sausagey bit around that body glove joint. Like I said, I keep forgetting what these things are called on Space Marines. You know, little jointy areas. I fill that area up a little bit more because I need to bulk it out, and once that's done I need to resculpt the back of the leg because where it was easy built, you know, the leg folded up there, so it was kind of like a weird divot. So I've got my ball of green stuff on the back of the leg. Now this is where it comes in really handy to have a flat color shape like this one. You can really smooth things out, but you should get a pretty good effect as well if you just use a paintbrush. You could, you know, push the green stuff around, smooth it out, which I will actually use as well in a bit. But I just slowly start moving the green stuff into the shape I want, you know, getting it rounded like the rest of the leg there, just smoothing it out. Trying to make sure there isn't a gap between green stuff and plastic as well. And as you can see here, I eventually get my wet paintbrush, and just on the edges I start lightly stroking the wet paintbrush across there, and maybe doing a bit of like dabbing motions and stuff like that, just to really try and smooth the transition off of the green stuff there. Now I know that maybe using milliput or green put, whatever you want to like call it there. That stuff is actually better for this because you can smooth it out, you can sand it and stuff like that. But I had the green stuff ready and I think it does a good job. You just got to make sure you smooth it out quite a lot more. And now that I got the back of the leg sorted, I went back to my old green stuff sausages, as I do, to make those leg joint rivety kind of ripple things. I was going to call them something different every time now. Now I start off with one at the bottom and I eventually do a smaller one at the top, but it didn't quite look right with how the leg was positioned. So I ended up kind of blending the two bits together and just going back in with a sharp bit of my hobby knife and just creating that indentation myself. Instead of having two little sausages, I just pressed the line where I wanted it to be, so kind of separating it myself manually like that. Just making sure that there's a defined line between the armor plates and this like body armor parts as well. Like I said, just using my hobby knife for that, and if you need to, gently use a wet paintbrush to just kind of smooth it all out. And yeah, with that, the legs were pretty much done. I've managed to resculpt the back, get those little rivety bits in. It's looking like it's coming together. Now, like I said before, I wanted this model to be standing on a pile of skulls, like a lot of the Khârn artwork, and there's a lot of artwork for Khârn, which is quite awesome. And just world eaters in general, there's always piles of human skulls everywhere. So I got a big lump of green stuff, you know, kind of to form the rock under his feet. And once I got that where I wanted it, I started kind of jamming in skulls and stones and stuff like that just to build up this kind of mound. I also glued one skull to his right hand leg because obviously the join there between the base and the leg is not very big or strong. So I kind of glued the skull there to the leg and to the base just for that extra little support. But saying that, the guy that commissioned this from me has actually taken Khârn off of this base, kind of cut around that, and just made one absolutely mental base that Khârn would be proud of. I will be linking his Instagram in the comments below or in this description when he's done with the model, so definitely go check it out when it's all done, because trust me, the base looks awesome and I can't wait to see it painted up myself. Now for the final two parts. As you can see, the model's looking pretty good. Well, I should say three parts because I've still got to glue the bottom of the foot in. But we need to sort out his pistol arm and his axe arm. So that's what we're going to do now. Once again, to really change up the pose of this model, I didn't want to just reuse the current pistol arm. So I got this straight arm from the Chaos Space Marines set. And I just cut the pistol off of this one. And I gently cut off Khârn's, famous plasma gun, or plasma pistol I should say, and I'm going to smash these two together. But I actually did use this arm eventually, but I thought it was a bit too straight and rigid, so later on in the video I will replace this with something that looks a little bit more natural. But one small thing I had to do though to get any new arm to fit on here was cut away from some of the cabling and stuff like that that goes up there, because Khârn's normal arm kind of is built around that bit. So all I do is to slice the top bit of that off at an angle, maybe use my Dremel thing just to kind of smooth it down a little bit more. But it's just a small little job, but it helps the new arm fit in there better with the new shoulder pad and everything. And weirdly, I have one solitary Khârn Chaos Space Marine shoulder pad lying in my bits box from many years ago, so I will be using this, but I will be cutting off the spikes around the edges except for the bottom. Once again, just using my hobby knife to gently slice the spikes off and then scraping it smooth. Now onto arguably one of the most important parts, is the position of the axe. And what I ended up opting in for was slicing the arm off with my clippers just with a chain start, so getting rid of that part completely. Then I got one of the arms that I kind of like the position of from the Age of Sigmar Khârn Blood Warriors, I believe they're called. They've got a few kind of bare arms like that, so I thought it would be quite nice. And what I did was I put the Khârn axe on top, kind of position where I wanted to slice the Blood Warrior arm, so I kind of marked it out with my hobby knife. And yeah, just went to my little hobby saw and just cut it in half. Weirdly, I kind of kept on sawing and sawing and sawing, and I was like, man, this thing does not want to cut apart, and realized I was actually through it and I was just sawing into my cutting mat, so that was a bit silly. And weirdly, without pretty much any cleanup, these two bits fit together perfectly. But the Blood Warrior's shoulder has kind of a rounded edge to it, so I had to straighten that out first. So what I did was I just got my hobby knife, kind of sliced a few chunks out of it, but mostly just reversed the blade and scraped the plastic until it was flat and smooth. Now while I'm waiting for all those arms to dry and all that stuff before I start squishing them onto the body, I'm going to go down to the right hand foot. I want to get the little toe section in the position that I want. I was going to glue it straight to the base. Now obviously there's a giant gap here between the foot and the toes, so this is where you want to get a little bit of green stuff out again, and you want to fill that gap up. So like I said, it's quite a simple little thing to do here. I'm just using my color shapers here to smooth out the transition between the toes and the foot, trying to make it as natural looking as I could. But yeah, not much to say on that, quite a simple little join there. And once that's done, it's time to get these arms on you and get this model looking good. And as you can see here, I thought I had the model done. And I thought, it looks alright, but like I said before, that pistol arm just looked too straight, too rigid, it just didn't look right. So I'm going to snap that off now. I'm also going to snap off the pistol, obviously, because we'd have to put that onto a new arm, get the shoulder pad off there. Luckily the glue hadn't fully dried yet. But as for the axe, as you can see, I went for kind of more of like a display kind of pose, if that makes any sense, because I feel like the axe is such an important part of Khârn. I just wanted it up in the air, kind of looks like maybe he's twisting, he's going to bring the axe down on someone, but he's also kind of like holding it up in the air, saying charge. I'm not quite sure which one he's doing, but I just wanted the axe up in the air because it's kind of his defining feature. But anyway, back to that pistol arm. I used basically a similar arm from the same box, but it just had a bit more of an angle to it. And the only thing I really did here was I trimmed down the triangular bit of the forearm. Just get that to a nice straight flush area, so I can fit that chunky pistol on there. Now obviously, one of the main things missing so far is Khârn has those chains wrapped around his arm with like the giant balls of steel hanging off of them. And I need to get them back on there. But unfortunately, because the way I've positioned the arm, the chains would be going in the complete opposite and wrong direction now. So what I did was, I had to slice off the dangly chain bits off of the chain that looks like it's wrapped around his arm. Once again, probably not describing it very well, but as you can see in the picture, in the video I should say. But yeah, the part that kind of wraps around his arm, I just glued it on there. I had to shave little bits off here and there to kind of make sure it fits a bit more flush. Now with the dangly bits, for some reason, I don't have any footage of gluing them back on. But the big long parts I just glued under his arm into a completely different and new position, making sure that it fits the angle of the model where the chains on his belt are going as well. And then the smaller bit that you get on there, I cut that off and I gently bent it by hand, just curving around his forearm, in the same kind of position. But that also helped me fill up some gaps from where I originally cut the chain and stuff like that. Like I said, unfortunately I had no video footage of this, but it was pretty simple. As always, you know me, I'm a professional for getting footage and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't get a twirly whirly showcase at the end of this whole thing, but this is the model done. I think everything turned out pretty decent. Taking a very, very monopose model and trying to make it a bit more, I don't know if dynamic's the right word, because the original one is quite dynamic anyway, but just changing it up so it's very different but also very recognizable as Khârn still. I can't say slicing up very monopose models is my favorite activity to do when it comes to kit bashing and converting. Doesn't seem like much, but it turned out to be a lot more work than I planned. And one thing I almost forgot to mention was I did also get that little bit of cabling that attached to his bare arm as well. I had to cut it down quite a lot, but it is there. So all these main features and bits are still there, everything like that, just had to change it around. But most importantly, what do you guys think of this? Do you think it's a more improved version, or do you prefer the original? I would say I like both. And of course, like I said before, the person that commissioned me to make this model will most likely be posting this up painted and everything and on the new fancy base relatively soon, I'd imagine. So I will link that Instagram up when it is. But as always guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, you know the drill by now. All that good stuff. But until the next video, bye bye.